Hey, I'm Erinn Cottman, founder of Erinn Cottman Teacher Development, and I'm passionate about transforming education. With over a decade of experience in education and instructional leadership, I've dedicated my career to empowering educators to reach their full potential. At ECTD, we specialize in providing the support and training that schools and districts nationwide need to create a culture of coaching that enables educators to be effective and at the top of their game. Our mission is simple: to strengthen school leaders and educators to improve classroom performance. Join me on this daily journey of transformation. Together, we can spark the change that educators and students truly deserve. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Coaching with Erinn Cottman. I am your host, Erinn Cottman. I am an Atlanta-based education consultant. I work with school leaders and instructional leaders to build a culture of coaching in their schools. Today, we are going to jump right in. This is episode 4. So if you are new to this space, make sure you go and check out some of our previous episodes. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. So today, we're going to actually talk about data and how to use data in coaching, but we're not going to honestly spend time in like what data you should be collecting or how to do it. I really actually want to talk about some of the data missteps that we make because as coaches and school leaders, most of us understand why we need to be looking at data, right? But we don't necessarily know how to avoid some of the pitfalls of data. So the thing that you will always hear me talk about is building a culture of coaching, and right alongside with that is a culture of data. And so a school that has a strong culture of coaching will also have a strong culture of data. What does that mean, Erinn? So that means that this school regularly collects data, they respond to data, and they use data to make decisions, right? And that everyone in this building understands the power of data. There is not a fear of data. It is visually there. It's in their meetings. It's in their conversations with students and stakeholders. And so data, a culture of data, means that data lives throughout that building and the practices of that building. So we're going to jump into what are some of the data missteps that we see and like how do you avoid them? So one of the really large ones that I see is like data overload, meaning like I've actually collected way too much data or I've collected data I don't actually need, right? So there's a lot of platforms and companies that will come into schools and help them gather data. But often sometimes we're gathering data that's not bad data, but it's not aligned to what we're actually working on. So what are we currently working on in our strategic plan for this school year? And that's the data we should be looking at. What data directly aligns to what we're currently working on this year, right? What data helps someone do their job better? What data do we need for our like state reporting, right? Like what data do we actually need? Because it's great maybe that this platform can tell me how many sets of twins we have in our building. I'm being facetious, but you get my point, right? But I don't need that data right now. Data, just because the data is available to you and a platform can give you that data does not mean that that's the data that you need to be focused in on. When we overload people with data, we essentially cause them to freeze. We overwhelm them. They open up this platform and they just see numbers and people shut down, right? So you want to make sure that you're tracking, you know what data you're tracking and why. It may look like if you have a system, right? So maybe it's, hey, we have a goal this year around, we have a math goal this year, right? X amount of students will be proficient in, yada, yada, yada. What is the data? On that strategic plan, I should have already identified what data I'm using to keep track of that goal and who's responsible for reporting that data out to us. Who's responsible, right? You have a whole admin team, and sometimes we don't even say, hey, this person, you're owning the reading data this year. It's a collective effort, but when we talk about analyzing that data, responding to that data, that's your bucket. That's your wheelhouse. You should know anything and everything about this particular data set because it's assigned to you. So what's the goal of the year or the goals that we have in hand? What's the data that supports that? What data are we tracking? and then who's really deep diving into that data. All leaders in your building and coaches should know your data, but if we're being honest, you don't know, you have to identify who knows it to its deepest levels, okay? The next thing that I often see is a lack of data literacy in a building. So, you guys will hear me, if you stick along with me long enough on this journey, you will hear me talk about how I am not a math person. I never have been. As a kid, I have like math phobia, right? Still have it sometimes as an adult. And so data, I open up a spreadsheet of numbers and I'm like, immediately, right? And so as a coach and a school leader, it's my job to make sure that I, one, am data literate. I understand how to analyze data. I understand how to draw conclusions from data. I understand how to respond to that data. But I've also taught my teachers how to do the same thing. I am not building data literacy in someone if, as the leader, I'm constantly saying, here's what the data says. I have to help build the muscle of my teachers to be able to do so. Why? Because teachers have to be able to respond to data faster to be able to make a decision for their classroom the very next day. Example of how a very simple way that I helped to build data literacy in teachers. I had a year where I felt like teachers were waiting to the end of the week to give an assessment and then respond. That doesn't work, right? I need you to move faster with that. So we implemented, hey, with your daily exit ticket, you need to be able to just do a quick sort. Meets, does not meets, right? Meets, done. I'm sorry, meets, does not meet, proficient, right? Let's start over that whole section because that's not correct. Okay, so one way that I was able to implement a really fast, easy system that helped build data literacy was just making sure that my teachers reported their exit tickets every single day. It was so simple, y'all. We had a Google form. They had to do a quick sort of their kids, right? Close, you don't have it at all, you got it, right? That was it. And they had to put in the Google form quickly their percentage of students where they fell, why they thought their data looked that way. So like either what went well in that class today that everyone met the mark, or what is the misconception that some of the students had, and how are they responding to that the next day? That's it. Simple, right? I'm, one, undoing the fear of data because now they're looking at their data every single day. And I'm also helping them to be data literate by saying, okay, what is the data and why do you think it's that way? And what are you going to do? So it's like a small bite-sized way, but I'm building that muscle of data literacy because I'm forcing you to look at that data every day. And it's, for some teachers, low stakes because it's not a huge exam or a unit exam or a end of year state test. It's like the one lesson I taught yesterday that I still can impact tomorrow. So take the stakes down to build the literacy versus giving someone an end of unit exam where they're now like, I don't know how I'm going to go back and teach these 3 standards because I have to keep moving, right? So low stakes while building that data literacy muscle. Additionally, you want to think through the quality of the data. So is the environment in which this data was collected sufficient? Did students actually try their hardest? Did I completely teach the lesson, or did I have to stop? I ran out of time, but I still gave you an exit ticket or an exam. Where am I in the scope and sequence of that unit, right? Like, is the data valid that I'm putting in front of teachers or that I'm responding to? That is a misstep often because we are often, if we're being honest, most teachers are behind their scope and sequence a lot, right? Like rarely do I come across teachers who's like, I'm right on pace, right? Typically they're off like, a week or so, right? Like it happens, right? There was a fire drill, there was a snow day, like whatever, right? You're off your pace. But you know what we don't do sometimes? Move the test date. We're like, oh, the district says we have to test this week. Why, right? Or all the 6th grade English teachers are testing on this date. Why? If we all didn't get where we need to go, that's not valid data, right? The quality of the data is not good. And then now there's like a whole trickle effect of reasons now why that data doesn't work. And so you've got to think through that. Like, am I just trying to meet compliance, or do I want data that I actually can do something with? Am I just trying to be compliant, or do I want data that I can actually do something with? That's when, as leaders, we have to make some decisions around what master we serve in that way, right? Like it's hard as leaders sometimes to push back to people above you and say, like, this actually doesn't work, or we don't want to be the school that's behind, or we don't want to be the school that didn't do the thing on the date that we all established. But if I know that the data I'm going to get isn't going to be of quality and it doesn't serve kids or teachers, what am I doing? All right. So when you're thinking about data, I want you to think through, have you established the key components of data that you need, right? Are you looking at the right data? Do you have the assessments? Are the assessments quality? All the stuff we didn't talk about today, but that you guys know is necessary for data. But what is your plan to make sure you avoid those pitfalls that we talked about? So let's review them real quick. So first pitfall is overload, right, of data, just looking at too much data, too many numbers, right? We're not thinking about data literacy and training teachers to have the capacity and the skill set to look at, analyze, and respond to data, okay? And then are we also making sure that the data that we're gathering has quality so that we can have it be impactful? I would love to discuss more of this with you guys in the comments of this episode. Let's dig into this. Thank you so much for joining me. Please make sure that you subscribe, comment, and like, and share with someone who will find this beneficial. See you guys next time.